With the Switch Pro's existence being more and less confirmed through codenames Orla and Calcio in Nintendo's latest firmware, I want us to move back over 4 years in time to January 13th, 2017, or 12 if you live in the Americas. The last to this date Nintendo Live press conference that wasn't pre-recorded. The Nintendo Switch presentation, detailing the Nintendo Switch with launch price, functionality of the Joy-Cons, revealing a number of games for the first time, and also with titles: Super Mario Odyssey, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Splatoon 3, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, ARMS, and more had all gameplay and final title reveals at Tokyo Big Sight. The event also brought a number of promises from third-party developers like the return of Travis Touchdown and the exclusivity of Shin Megami Tensei 5 before The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild got its launch day through one of, if not the best trailers of all time. Without the star of the show, the Nintendo Switch, this presentation would never have happened, as over 4 years had passed since the last Nintendo E3 live press conference in June 2012. That one was also for a new console, the Wii U, and its lineup. Significant hardware reveals and showcases have always been treated seriously by Nintendo, and even revisions like the new 3DS got a dedicated direct in the first Nintendo Direct of 2015. Now in 2021, we're on the verge of another hardware boost after the data mining of the codenames Orla and Calcio adding meat to the Nintendo Switch Pro speculation. Well, that and a surprisingly absent first-party lineup of new games for 2021, a situation that we have not witnessed from Nintendo in pretty much ever. And it's a shocking twist seeing that not a single new first-party game has been confirmed for the year as we entered it. Yes, even 2016 had a delayed Star Fox Zero. 2021 has nothing, and at the same time we know about two massive games that are under development: Metroid Prime 4 and the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It is just that both are only under development, and outside of these two games we know nothing. Much like what was the case prior to the reveal of the Nintendo Switch, which teased us with a new 3D Mario and a sequel to Splatoon. In 2021 so far we don't even have a tease, unless Bowser's Fury is one for the future. Well, it definitely points to a new mainline 3D Mario game, but definitely not coming this year, as it took far too long to make this massive expansion. Other than the likely lack of the launch of a new 3D Mario and Metroid Prime 4, this year is an empty book that is waiting to be filled out. In other words, a Nintendo Switch Pro online presentation anytime after February 12th could be just what Nintendo and we all need to get the best possible introduction to the strongest Nintendo hardware for the next 3 or 4 years. The Nintendo Switch Pro, codename Orla and Calcio, and the lineup that will follow their release. Where the 2017 Nintendo Switch presentation focused mostly on on-dock play and the motion control possibilities of the Joy-Cons, a Nintendo Switch Pro presentation in 2021 should focus more on the upgraded specs of the system, which the 2017 Switch presentation completely ignored, and instead focused on variety in playstyles. Even so, in the last 2 years we have seen Nintendo pulling away from motion control experiences, and games that require you to play with one detached Joy-Con. It seems that Nintendo slowly but surely has figured out that Joy-Cons aren't exactly the ultimate controller experience, even in on-dock play. The action buttons are small, the D-pad split, and the left analog stick a regular victim of Joy-Con drifting. The latter being a massive PR and legal blunder for Nintendo. At the same time, Nintendo has the Switch Pro controller, which sadly is not bundled with any of the official systems. With matte finish, brilliant size and grip, large action buttons, 2 solid analog sticks that are not even nearly as vulnerable to drifting, and a proper D-pad. The rumored Nintendo Switch Pro nickname for Nintendo's next mid-gen revision has been coined for 2 reasons, one being the PlayStation 4 Pro and the other being the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. And yes, the Pro controller should definitely be a part of a Nintendo Switch Pro presentation. So what kind of presentation should this be? Obviously, it has to be online. The worldwide situation, despite the light in the tunnel, will not change for a number of months, and physical press conferences with an audience until the fall are just not realistic. There's a reason why Japan is holding its breath of whether the Tokyo Olympics will happen at all, and if they take place with or without an audience. Luckily, gaming can just adapt to smaller studio with video link or pre-recorded messages from all partners and participants, just as we saw throughout last year with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X showcases, Gamescom Opening Night Live, Tokyo Game Show, and the most watched of them all, the Game Awards 2020. Nintendo, however, took the most famous company faces out of their presentations in 2020. Well, with the exception of Masahiro Sakurai, who even invited us to his home, and Miyamoto, who gave us a taste of Super Nintendo World. Under these circumstances, a Nintendo Switch Pro presentation is the perfect opportunity for Nintendo to strike back after being completely overshadowed in this field in 2020. But why a presentation instead of just a YouTube upload? Simple, a Switch Pro isn't a Switch Lite, but all you had to say is that it is a smaller Switch that cannot be docked, has no detachable Joy-Cons and kickstand, as it is a pure handheld that plays your games exactly in the same resolution as your regular Switch undocked. It also has longer battery life and is $100 cheaper than the regular $299 Nintendo Switch. A Switch Pro, however, requires deeper explanation, and obviously a Nintendo Direct format could work as we missed proper Directs in 2020. The online pre-record reveal of the new Nintendo 3DS in January 2015 in the US and Europe is a prime example of how hardware revision reveals should be handled within a Nintendo Direct. It is also a presentation format that could easily be replicated during the ongoing pandemic, detailing the upgrades, showing how key games perform better thanks to it, and finally end with 1 or 2 special bundles to incentivize sales. In the case of the new Nintendo 3DS XL, that was the Majora's Mask 3D edition. Even so, a lot has changed in the last 6 years, and as Arlo has pointed out in some of his videos, it could be that the mainline Direct format is dead, at least for now. Even so, that doesn't mean that Nintendo is done with one-time meaty Nintendo presentations for its hardware, and in particular when showing a visible upgrade across multiple games, which is absolutely a must. Thus, I would like to dedicate the second half of this video to show you what would be the ideal format for a one-of-a-kind Nintendo Switch Pro presentation. Please enjoy. First and foremost, just like the Nintendo Switch 2017 presentation, we should start with a quick introduction from Nintendo's president welcoming everyone around the world, viewers, streamers, and explaining why we are here today online before fading to a reveal trailer, which shows the revised top models of the Nintendo Switch, much like this concept trailer made by Computer Bild in 2020 did. Upon its conclusion, instead of returning back to President Furukawa, we instead cut straight over to Nvidia's CEO Jensen Huang, who talks about the technical upgrades and the new performance benchmarks that Nvidia has managed to hit for the revised model Nintendo Switch. This will be perfect as Nvidia are experts at detailing the superiority of their new hardware, and well accustomed to producing high-quality off-stage pre-recorded presentations, as we saw in their September 2020 GeForce RTX 3000 series special event. For a couple of minutes we could learn about improved cooling, higher clock speeds, and improved performance before Wang hands the Switch Pro controller over to Yoshiaki Koizumi, who is the only other person in the same studio as Furukawa. He thanks Nvidia for their excellent technical overview and explains why the Switch Pro doesn't come with detachable Joy-Cons, but rather is bundled with the Switch Pro controller, one of the best Nintendo controllers ever made with big action buttons, etc., which finally becomes the bundled Switch Pro controller instead of a separate option that it has been in the case of the base model Switch and the Switch Lite. Koizumi could also talk about the two models, one being an entirely more costly system with dock and the other being just a dock for existing Switch owners. Prices for the two options and the release date are revealed, and after that Koizumi states that it's time to see how Nintendo's and our partners' upcoming games perform on our top models. From here on out, we see trailers and gameplay that are all captured on Nintendo Switch Pro, which means, you guessed it, Zelda's 35th anniversary transition at some point in the presentation, with series producer Eiji Aonuma and the return of the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild after a close to 2-year-long absence. Now, I'm a little unsure if this will be the first game they would show in the presentation, or end with like they did during the 2017 Nintendo Switch presentation with Breath of the Wild and its release date, but I have a feeling that they might actually start with Zelda this time, and conclude with a different game instead. That is obviously if we get a presentation in the first place. Alternatively, we could see multiple Zelda games in this presentation as a celebration of the series' 35th anniversary, most likely a Triforce collection running in highest possible resolutions, and a demonstration of how much better Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity runs in both single and local multiplayer with DLC characters. And this way, we go slowly through the history of 3D Zelda and end with Breath of the Wild's sequel, and how it looks on Nintendo's upcoming top model. If Zelda doesn't open the first-party software show, then Splatoon 3 could do it, and also reveal that it launches the same day as the top model. Some have also been hoping for a possible next Mario Kart, say Mario Kart 9, but personally I think Mario Kart suffers from the GTA 5 syndrome, namely that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is still selling too well for a sequel to come anytime soon. Nintendo might also have other hardware pushing first-party experiences lined up for 2021. Though after Bowser's Fury's scale and required workload, it is uncertain if we will see the next 3D Mario revealed like we saw with Super Mario Odyssey in the Switch presentation in 2017. From here on out, things are more uncertain. Could we see a new IP, the reveal of the next Fire Emblem, or maybe something else? In this case, I would like to remind you that the Nintendo Switch presentation in 2017 was split into acts. Act 1 was hardware, aka the system itself, and Act 2 was the Nintendo developed or published lineup. These two took up over the first half of the presentation and was concluded with the reveal of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. As we all know, Monolith Soft's new IP has been teased for years now. That might be of concern, but at least they didn't promise that it will come when it's ready or upload any trailers. Instead, we only have concept art, which could become a reveal trailer in a Nintendo Switch Pro presentation, showing a graphical and franchise leap for the developer of the Xenoblade Chronicles X, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Then we have Act 3 of the 2017 Nintendo Switch presentation, which was all about third-party developers and with a heavy focus on third-party exclusives on the Nintendo Switch. Here we had and still have Atlus Shin Megami Tensei 5, which is finally coming out in 2021. This year also delivers Bravely Default 2, but perhaps Square Enix has something more in store for a Nintendo Switch Pro. Perhaps a sequel to Octopath Traveler, which was first revealed during the 2017 presentation, or to really show the power of Nintendo's top model, the only handheld port of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Nothing will scream a hardware upgrade like the reveal of Final Fantasy VII Remake running on a cartridge on Nintendo Switch's top model, and as a cloud streaming experience on the base model Nintendo Switch and Switch Lite. It also has had the perfect build-up now that Sephiroth has turned Cloud's life into misery in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. A different title that is also getting its full deliverance in 2021 on the Nintendo Switch after being teased since the 2017 Switch presentation is Travis Touchdown for No More Heroes 3. It is also possible that we could finally see more of Bayonetta 3, though its development status remains unclear as of the writing of this video. Then we could see some Western developers show up with a title or two that takes advantage of a top model Switch, much like Square Enix could do with the Final Fantasy VII Remake. The entire software section is concluded with a lineup video for the rest of 2021 and parts of 2022 before we get to Act 4, much like what was the case in 2017. Yes, the conclusion, which just like in 2017, should bring us back to Nintendo's president, who summarizes the hardware before ending with one final announcement. In 2017, that was the best video game trailer of all time for Breath of the Wild. In 2021, it could be the first proper trailer and title reveal of its sequel, running natively on the top model Switch. A perfect conclusion to a presentation of this scale, but which could also be replaced with something else if ready to be shown, namely the other franchise that celebrates its 35th anniversary this year, Metroid. Over 2 years have passed since the development of Prime 4 was handed over to Retro Studios, and with it we could get our first tease of in-game footage of Samus Aran's next grand adventure, which will come out in 2022 or later. And there I forgot about the possibility of a new 2D Metroid in 4K. Even so, that is a Nintendo Switch Pro presentation as it could be if it takes place in 2021, an in-depth dive in the hardware and outlining the software lineup of the Switch, and with it its continued presence in 2021, 2022 and beyond. If you haven't already, please press that like button and share this video so more people can watch it, and if you're hungry for more Nintendo Switch Pro, Nintendo Direct, Zelda and Metroid 35th anniversary videos, then subscribe to the Commonwealth Realm and press that notification bell icon for all notifications to not miss any of them. Finally, a big thanks goes to all our patreon.com/CommonRealm patrons, and in particular our royal producer Charles Shash. Other than that, please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.